Hello and welcome to Rocket Fuel, your daily update of everything that's happening in the Rocket Pool and Ethereum ecosystems. My name is Wack. Today is July 17th when I'm recording it, but the episode will be out on July 18th, most likely. And today's episode is going to be the most bullish episode of Rocket Fuel you have ever watched in your life. It's going to be talking on Rocket Pool side, we're going to be talking about Saturn 3 DevNet. We're going to be talking about BTCS, talking about Rocket Pool, that's cool. On the Ethereum side, we're going to be talking about the treasury companies, ETH treasury companies. We're going to be talking about the ETFs. We will be talking about Blackrock and so much more. Like, I am massively underplaying this right now. You are going to enjoy this episode very much if you have a bullish bias. Let's get started.
10, 9, ignition sequence start, 6.
Okay, so there is only one place to start today's episode, and that is with price talk. Now, yeah, it's been a fun few days. It's been a very, very fun few days in crypto land. And if you have a look at the RPL chart, it is doing very well. It is currently right now $8.40 per RPL, and that is up 35% basically on the day. In the last week, it's up 40%. In the last 14 days, it is up 68%. In 30 days, it's up 45%. Let's not look at the 1 year. That's no fun for anyone. But the last couple of weeks have been incredibly bullish for Rocket Pool. It's not just Rocket Pool, of course, in the RPL, but also for ETH. And that's what we can see here with the ETH chart. That is not loading. I have way too many tabs open. There we go. ETH chart is up 8% today to 3,595. Just a few minutes ago, it was up at 3,620 or thereabouts. Let me just see. 6,320 thereabouts. This is just incredibly bullish. ETH actually flipped green on the 1 year, 5% green, 30 days, 42%, 14 days, 40%, 7 days, 21%, 24 hours, it is up 8%. It's just really, really strong. So I'm not going to sit here and talk about the price right now. I'm going to be talking about the price right at the end of the episode, but you just have to put everything that you're going to see in the episode today in the context of what's been happening with the price. So I kind of had to cover that there. But as always, we're going to start with some Rocket Pool news. So the Rocket Pool news that we have is about Saturn 3 DevNet. Saturn 1 DevNet 3. So Langus here says that we're excited to announce that the DevNet has been deployed and is available for the community to play with it, test it, break it. For those who took part in DevNet 2, please note this is a completely fresh testnet, so re-registration is required. So what can you do on this testnet? You can do RPIP43, which is set up mega pools. You can stake, unstake RPL. You can do dissolving proofs. On the top of that, you got RPIP65, which is prioritizing rETH withdrawal buffer. You've got RPIP 57, node distributor user fund unbundling. You've got RPL staking rework. You've got protocol upgrade guardrails and balance submission guardrails as well. And they said these are the majority of the features for Saturn 1 functionality, except the reward tree components, which of course Patches is working on reward tree version 11. And then they said that Sigma Prime have commenced auditing the Saturn 1 contracts, which is really, really huge news. So that's really awesome. And then Langus here said that if you want to use DevNet 3, you've got to go to Smart Node version 1.8.0/dev. So that's the one that you're going to be using. But yeah, people have already started using it. There is the thread, the channel, which is Saturn DevNet. I've not been following it too closely, so I can't tell you what kind of things people have been saying. But if you want to know what people have been saying, there's Halulu's in there already, and it looks like Ken is in there as well. And people are sharing information. And actually, that's from last month. So it looks like it's just Halulu so far who's kind of sharing ideas, but hopefully in the next couple of days, as people get a chance to play with the DevNet, then this channel is going to get really busy. But I think most people are just sat watching the charts, so that's what's going on there. We also have a new version of the smart node. Now, this was released a couple of days ago, and this is version 1.17.0 of the smart node, which has client updates, and now the default gas limit has been raised by the consensus and execution clients to 45 million. And there's also got a new feature that was activated recently, which is partial state expiry, which will reduce the storage amounts needed for the nodes. So this has got all the latest client versions. And then if you want to prune your execution client, then you've got options in the different ones. You can have a history mode, which shows all the history. History expiry mode, which will let you prune partial history. You've got regular, which just has a regular node with no expiry, and you have an archive node, which runs the full archive, of course, which really only the ODAO members do. It's not really needed for node operators. And then there's some information on how you can get that set up. Another thing that's interesting here is that there is a BTCS relay. So BTCS are a node operator with Rocket Pool. You might know that name from the fact that they are now an ETH treasury company and raising some really nice amounts of ETH there. And then there's also some other things that have been added here as well. So yeah, there's some steps on how to get your pruning set up once you upgrade. And yeah, if you have any issues with that, you can go to support, and someone there will help you with that. Okay, and next we have the POAP for this. So Schifrin made a POAP for this. If you share your screenshot before Friday at 1 Eastern time, then you can get a POAP for upgrading. And normally at the end of the year, Schifrin does a raffle. So definitely keep your eyes open for that. And get upgraded soon and get everything sorted out. Sorry, my computer's just being really slow. I have so many tabs open. Okay, so we just mentioned BTCS. So Benjamin, who is the VP of engineering, actually popped into the Rocket Pool Discord and just was like shooting the shit, which is actually really cool. Now, I've mentioned BTCS on Rocket Fuel a bunch of times recently, and you know that they are Rocket Pool node operator. Of course, the reason why everybody knows who they are now is because they have started the ETH treasury company. They've been working in the Ethereum ecosystem for a while, so they're just building on top of that, which is really cool. And now the really cool thing about BTCS is that they have this relationship with Rocket Pool, right? So I think Benjamin kind of like just popped into Discord because he knows that's where the Rocket Pool community is, kind of started talking about coffee, which people were talking about, but then kind of taking some questions as well. Valdov here says, I love that you've been lurking in the BTCS chat, but we're like, hold the phone. And he says, came for the mentions, but stayed for the coffee. And giving opinions on like people's coffee takes. But it's more than that though. It wasn't just talking about coffee, which is what Benjamin was doing. He was actually talking about Rocket Pool as well. So he says, hopping off for a bit, but always down to talk more about BTCS and Rocket Pool and coffee. Can't forget that. So that was on the 15th, a couple of days ago when he did that. He actually replied to a tweet from the Rocket Pool Twitter account here. So the Rocket Pool Twitter account was kind of leaning into the fact that BTCS are Rocket Pool node operators. So the Rocket Pool Twitter account said, in case you missed it, a NASDAQ listed institution has been busy accumulating ETH and using it to run validators with Rocket Pool. And then Benjamin replied by saying Rocket Pool is an easy choice, which of course is really nice for some of that old marketing there. That's really cool. But the really key piece of information here is Benjamin coming back again and people talking to him about the different DeFi strategies that BTCS are using. And one of the strategies they're using is, they're running their own solo validators, and they have their own relay, the one that has been added to the smart node. On top of that, they are running Rocket Pool nodes. And the third strategy that they're doing with the ETH that they're accumulating is actually taking it to Aave, taking loans against it, and then using that to buy more ETH. So they're kind of like leveraging up their ETH exposure. Now, people in the Rocket Pool community were like, hey, instead of, taking ETH to Aave and borrowing against that and then leveraging up, why don't you instead use rETH? So obviously Aave has an integration, like rETH is can use as collateral on Aave. Benjamin kind of thought about this. He says, we like Rocket Pool, we're going to keep using Rocket Pool. And he says, we're talking about using rETH as collateral in Aave as well, but not sure if we'll do it. It's hard to get auditors on board with most of what we're doing, so we have to pick our battles. So this is actually really interesting, the fact that BTCS are even considering using rETH. Now, with the fact that they're getting hundreds, tens of thousands of ETH coming through at the moment, with the idea of getting that up to hundreds of thousands or millions, this would actually be a huge boost for Rocket Pool's growth if a BTCS or someone like BTCS used rETH in this way. The benefit for them would be that their underlying deposit would actually be earning staking yield, which is more than just vanilla ETH. So they'll be leveraging up their ETH, but also earning yield on their deposit, which is actually really cool. So if they could do that, that would be absolutely amazing. Benjamin was actually in another thread today as well, talking about the same idea and taking it to their team. So maybe we'll get, some more information, hopefully some positive information about that in the coming days. That would be really huge for Rocket Pool if something like that worked out. Okay, let's talk about Liquity V2 for a minute. And they have a program going right now with migrations. If you migrate your position, you get access to some of $10,000 worth of bold. So if you have a loan with another service, you can use DeFi Saver to bring that to Liquity instead. The advantage you get with Liquity is that you save on fees, on interest rates, because Liquity is kind of like undercutting most of the market, which is really cool the way they're doing that. And also, if you mint bold instead of a different stablecoin, you can use it in a whole bunch of different protocols, DeFi protocols for liquidity providing, and earn some really good yield on this. So some of these are quite big protocols, and they're giving 10-13%. You're even getting up to 15 to 30% on Balancer with Smart Decks. So there's some really big things happening there. If you want information on how to migrate, you can go to app.defisaver.com and Shifter. Follow the links in the tweet below, and just be really careful what you're clicking on. But yeah, if you want to use Liquity, it's, I think, one of the best protocols in Ethereum, in all of crypto. I really love Liquity. So if you have a loan against your rETH, then that's a place that you can go to level it up. And yeah, good stuff. Okay, next we are going to be talking about a funny thing that happened in the Rocket Pool Discord the other day. So this was in Moon's thread, which if you are all interested in talking about the price or trading of ETH or RPL or other tokens, this is the place for you to be. It's under trading, and it's one of the most active threads in the whole Discord right now. But Moon, the person who started this thread, actually got banned the other day, which we thought was really unusual. Why did he get banned? And it turns out he put a message in there saying, he's talking about Trump, and he says, has he said anything about how much he wants to cut rates by? And then Jasper said, I dare someone to say the exact same message. And then Looking for Owls did it, and he got banned as well. And then a few minutes later, we actually got Sneaky Ninja Guy banned as well. So we were tagging Kron, and we're like, what's going on, Kron? And then Kron turned up a little bit later saying that, stop getting banned, guys. And we were talking about the Trump cutting rates with the new Fed chair, saying that he might want to cut rates by 300 basis points, going from around 4% interest rates to 1% interest rates, and then Kron unbanned people. So yeah, thankfully they got unbanned. So yeah, that was that little funny hijinks a couple of days ago that I certainly enjoyed. Okay, let's talk about some staking news now. And staking news today is from NodeSet. And NodeSet actually have exited some validators. So it looks like this happened at random. So Mambo-san says, looks like one of my validators got exited. Joe said, mine too. Beacon Chain gave me a heart attack. Crypto Nut says, me too. Dude says, same here. Sam CM says, me too. So a whole bunch of people actually got validators exited. It happened at random. People were saying, why can't you check the performance of node operators and the ones who are worse performing, remove some of those guys first. And Nick says, we don't have the ability to make that determination yet. and with Stakewise, their system is set up to have a first in, first out algorithm. But yeah, some of those validators exit, so I guess the system works. But yeah, if you got your validator exited, I'm sorry, don't take it personally, it happened at random. Okay, let's move to ETH news, and ETH news has been amazing. So we talked about SBET on the last episode and about how they are raising obscene amounts of ETH. Now, this is just, staggering. They've just been buying tens of thousands of ETH every day. Here, this is from the 15th. And, we were expecting this because we were following the wallet. And it says that, between July 7th and July 13th, Sharpling acquired 75,656 ETH for $213 million, an average price of 2,852 ETH dollars per ETH. Now, they are nicely up in profit for all of that ETH that they bought, because obviously the price is at around 3,600 right now. And they said that 99.7% of that is staking. And they've earned 415 ETH. So that's a real yield there, not like this fake yield that other treasury companies and other protocols talk about. And they are accumulating like mad. Now, with this buy, of course, that means they went to the top of the strategic ETH pile, ETH reserve pile. And here Fabrice was talking about this as well, saying that they're now the biggest holder and they've acquired so much, and they're now number one, which is above the Ethereum Foundation, who were previously in the number one position with around 250,000. However, that was a huge big story. Oh, actually, I leave that. However, after that, earlier on today, they have announced that they will be raising $5 billion through their common stock, like through the ATM method, and raising $5 billion in order to buy ETH. So this is just an astronomical amount of ETH. $5 billion is just so staggering, like absolutely mind-bogglingly large amount. And they've got information here about how they want to buy it and when they're going to buy it. They basically want to buy it within the next couple of months. So it's pretty much, $500 million a week, I think, something along that kind of target that they want to buy at over the next 2 months. So that's $100 million worth of ETH a day or something along those kind of lines, but $5 billion of ETH. So wow, that is a huge amount of ETH that they want to buy, but they're not at the lead anymore. So Bitminer, this is the one that's headed up by Tom Lee. They have come in with a huge purchase, rocketing them straight up to the top of the pile of the ETH strategic reserve, and they bought $1 billion, which is more than $1 billion now worth of ETH, for 300,000 shares. And Tom Lee here says that we surpassed $1 billion in ETH holdings just 7 days after closing on the initial $250 million private placement. It says we're well on our way to achieving our goal of acquiring and staking 5% of the overall ETH supply. So they have a goal of acquiring 5% of the ETH supply. At the time when that tweet was written earlier this morning on Thursday, that was worth around $20 billion, about 6 million ETH. ETH was, I think, about $3,300 at the time. Without the price, so they have a ETH target instead of a dollar target. So instead of saying, we want to buy $5 billion of ETH, they're saying we want to buy 5% of the ETH, which is about 6 million ETH. As the price goes up, obviously the amount of dollars they need will go up as well. But it looks like they've got a strategy here of how they're going to go about doing that. So the amount of ETH they want to buy is just shockingly large. Like 6 million ETH would, it's just gargantuan. It's just truly huge. So that, I don't know what time frame they're looking at, like, maybe over the course of weeks, months, maybe years, but they've set themselves that target of 5% of ETH supply. And this is just really huge. So yeah, now we've got Joe Lubin with SBET, and now we've got Tom Lee with Bitmine competing with each other of who's going to be the top dog in crypto. And then here Fabrice as well says that they went to number one, and he says the Tom Lee versus Joe Lubin, the ETH accumulation race is on. And what's really funny is last week there were tweets kind of going around asking, when are we going to reach $1 billion of one of these treasury companies having $1 billion worth of ETH, and now we have two companies within a week that have now reached $1 billion worth of ETH in their reserves. Tom Lee here put out a thread talking about the MicroStrategy and what their strategy was, and how they accumulated Bitcoin, and how Tom Lee's basically trying to apply the similar thing for Ethereum, and how they're getting it. So he said, from the start of their strategy, their stock went from $13 to $455, and this is how much is due to BTC rise versus a treasury strategy. Now Tom Lee put out these numbers, and it's just the numbers are quite staggering. So he says that from August the 20th today, Bitcoin did an 11x in price, but their treasury did a 35x, so it has a greater impact on their treasury. So obviously he's arguing that if you buy their shares, they're going to outperform ETH. But what's really funny is here in this slide, he actually talks about just what the impact of the price is for ETH, and where is it? Maybe it was a different chart. Yeah, he shared a chart basically showing that ETH is going to do like a 35x or something like that from when their strategy started a couple of weeks ago, and that would basically put us at like $70,000 or $80,000 ETH. And if they're hoping to get that in a year, then I will take that price. Definitely will take that price. So that is definitely getting people excited and pumped. But that's not all. We have more companies now adopting the strategy. Another Bitcoin company. So here, Josh shares information from BTC Digital, and it says that they're announcing a strategic pivot to Ethereum. They're converting all their BTC reserves to ETH, and this is a Singaporean company who have done this earlier today. And we also then got Hani Abu, who is now tracking all of this information. So he runs the Ethereum adoption page, which has information on companies adopting Ethereum, different strategies. And one of the pages that he has added is Bitcoin miner pivots. So these are companies who were previously Bitcoin and Bitcoin miners, and they have now pivoted to going all in on ETH. So far, he has 4 companies listed. So that's BTC Digital. That's the one that we just mentioned. They're pending. We've got BTCS, who we talked about earlier, and they have 32,000 ETH now. Bitmine, who have 300,000 ETH, and BitDigital, who have 100,000 ETH, which is just huge. However, that isn't covering this news here. Also, BitDigital, we already just covered that. Yeah. So BitDigital, they are planning on raising $6 million, and they're adding $1 million ETH position, but their target is to have tens of millions of dollars of ETH in their reserves by the end of the year. So the buy pressure that comes from these two big companies like SBET and Bitmine, that is just been tens of millions of dollars a day, literally tens of millions of dollars a day. And what we're seeing then is that they're just unrelenting in their buying. They've got so much money that they're just buying all day long pretty much. And this is showing up in the price now, right? The fact that the price has gone up so much in the last week or 2 weeks is just staggering, just how quickly this has impacted what's going on. And I think it's just going to keep getting stronger. It's just they as more and more companies kind of come into this, then they're just going to keep buying more and more ETH. And yeah, so they are not the only ones who are buying ETH. Of course, we also have these beautiful vehicles called ETFs, and these are exchange traded funds, that are buying spot ETH on the market. And it's just so funny. In the last 10 days, this has been a positive streak for ETH. And I'm just going to read out the numbers of how much these guys have been buying every day. Okay, so we have Blackrock, Fidelity, Bitwise, 21 shares, and then a couple of others, and then Grayscale as well. So on the 3rd, $150 million, on the 7th, $60 million, then $45 million. Then this is the real numbers now from the 9th, $211 million, 10th, $383 million, 11th, $204 million, on the 14th, $259 million, on the 15th, $192 million, 16th, which is yesterday, $726 million worth of ETH bought by the ETFs. And then today, another $602 million worth of ETH bought by these ETFs. And that is over $1 billion in 2 days for Blackrock alone. It's just absolutely astonishing how big these numbers are. Now, we're going to talk about this at the end of the episode about just how much ETH there is that they're buying. Like, we're going to put it in context. But this is $1 billion a day. Well, no, not quite $1 billion a day. 500, 600, $700 million a day of buy pressure that is just coming onto ETH. And, you know, you could say that the treasury companies are, you know, they're just buying like nonstop, right? They're selling their shares ATM. That means at the market, they're selling their new shares, and they're using the money from the new shares to buy more ETH, which makes the price go up, which then makes their shares more valuable as a NAV, like the premium on their, you know, the value of their assets. And then they print more shares, and they're just doing that every day. And people are buying their shares, their prices are going up. And then on the other side, you have these ETFs that are just buying relentlessly as well. And it's just absolutely staggering. Like, I just can't, I don't have the words to explain to you just how much ETH is being bought right now. It's a mind-bogglingly large amount, and that's what's showing up on the price. That's why the price has gone up $1,000 like in the last, you know, week and a bit. It's just too big. It's just really, really, really big. Now, with BlackRock here, Nate says that we have a new daily inflow. This is a record for the iShares Ethereum ETF, and that's $550 million. Back-to-back record days in the last 10 days. $2.1 billion worth of ETH has come in to the ETFs. So they are buying over $150 million a day on average, basically, over the last 2 weeks every day. So when you add that up with the strategy stuff, that's basically $250,000 a day of buy pressure, with the last couple of days, of course, being even more than that, which is why ETH has shot up in price so much over the last couple of days. It's just, you are seeing it on the chart right now. Yeah, it's really big. Now, what's going to make the ETFs even bigger? Oh, so sorry, no, here's a comparison as well. So yesterday we were hoping that the ETH inflows would be bigger than BTC. It didn't quite work out that way, but today ETH has flipped the BTC inflows. So we have BTC inflows at $523 million, which is also a huge amount of money. And then of course the ETH ETFs were $800 million in total, according to these guys. Oh, sorry, this was yesterday. So, yeah, let's just go back to far side. It's better. So the the ETH today was $602 million, and then Bitcoin today was, let's have a look. Bitcoin today was $522 million. So ETH outpaced Bitcoin today, which of course is really nice. And I think that there will hopefully be other flippings to come. So I'm ready for that. Now, what else is happening? We have news from BlackRock, who are appealing to the SEC to let them convert their iShares Ethereum Trust to staking. So here it says, proposed to amend the iShares Ethereum Trust, shares of which have been approved by the Commission to list and trade on the exchange pursuant to NASDAQ rule, blah, 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 to permit staking of Ether held by the trust. So with BlackRock, like, you know that they don't apply for ETFs unless they know that they're going to get that approved. The staking ETF is like really interesting here because they have, I think, 1 million ETH or something like that. They've got a huge amount of ETH. Actually, more than that. Let me see. They have in total right now 7.66 billion dollars worth of ETH, which is actually over 2 million ETH right there. So by them applying to get that moved over, that's going to be basically adding on to the stake, and the staked ETH is already at all-time highs. So this is going to bring a huge amount of attention to staking, and it's just huge. So you will have the first time in history on the Nasdaq, you will have a yield bearing asset that gives you yield in the asset that you have deposited. Now, normally, you have dividends or that kind of stuff. So what happens is you buy shares of a company, and then every year or 6 months or whatever the frequency is, they will give you some money. But what happens is like you have a share of the company, and the money they give you is in dollars, right? So we all know that, dollars are a shit coin, like no one wants dollars. What you want is ETH. Like with Ethereum though, when you stake your Ether, you actually earn Ether. And now, with the max EB, that's compounding. Staking at this rate, it'd be compounding anyway, but that's 3% compounding. And as the stake comes online, obviously that amount would go down. Staking rewards would go down because it's dividing across a larger number of people. But they're going to make so much money from this, because people are going to realize that the yield on ETH, the real yield, is going to be like absolutely amazing. Like it's the best in crypto, and it's just going to be really, really strong. So yeah, the expectation is that the amount of people who have bought these ETFs, the staking ETFs, is just going to like be orders of magnitude higher than the stake, the assets in custody they have right now. So when you start adding up all these things, you can see why the price has gone up the way it has. Okay, so what else has happened? Well, Wintermute here, one of their people, their CEO actually, who's this person here, they put out a tweet saying there is clearly almost no ETH available for sale on the Wintermute over-the-counter desk. So now Wintermute are one of the biggest market makers in crypto, and if their CEO is putting out messaging saying that there is no ETH available on their over-the-counter desk, that means that if you want to buy ETH, you have to go to an exchange to do it. But we've been talking about months about how the exchange amounts are lower than they have been at any point pretty much in ETH's history. I think outside of 2016, this is like pretty much a record low for ETH on exchanges. So if there's no ETH left on the over-the-counter desks, and there's no ETH on exchanges, then these people who are buying millions and millions, hundreds of millions of dollars worth of ETH every day, where are they going to be getting their ETH from? Well, what do you know? Here, Jasper was watching the charts, and he says earlier today you could visibly see sharp SBET time-weighted average sale TWAP on Binance. It says compare the Binance and Coinbase charts below, and you notice the consistently spaced buy orders for 12 hours on Binance that were absent on Coinbase. So he said this gives a downside protection on the price, but the upside potential is there. So if you actually have a look at the volume, the screenshot that he took, if you were looking at the screen right now, you can see like the candles, and they're kind of like random, I guess. Like, there's a green one and it's like, decently sized, but then there's not too many decently sized for the next 6 hours. And then there's a red one that's decently sized and nothing really for another like 3 hours. And then there's a green one that's decently sized. So this is on Coinbase, right? However, if you look at the Binance chart, what you're seeing is that there's consistent regularly spaced spikes that are happening on the volume, and it's all buy spikes. So that is there. Jasper thinks that that's what's happened now, is that the ETFs potentially, but definitely the treasury companies, or at least some of them, are finding it difficult to source their ETH on, peer-to-peer, like institution to institution. And now they're having to enter the public markets to buy their ETH, which is already running low on amounts. Now, I should be clear here, as the price of ETH goes up, there will be new people who will want to start selling their ETH. So it's not, as simple as saying, that's it, the ETH is all gone. As the price goes up, more and more people will be willing to sell. In fact, in some of the communities that I'm in, people have already started, taking some profit. So like one person sold enough to kind of pay off their mortgage, which is absolutely amazing. And there's other people who, have started taking profit as well. So, that's absolutely fine. Good for them. But what's happening is when they sell their ETH now, whether that's on, a DEX or a centralized exchange, it's basically either one of the treasury companies who are buying your ETH or an ETF that's buying your ETH, but your ETH is being taken by the institutions. So you are basically giving them your ETH, and if you want to keep doing that, then you're welcome to do that, but they are not taking my ETH at these prices, especially when you're looking at all the different catalysts that are kind of coming into play right now. That's not going to happen. I'm not giving them my ETH. Okay, so that's enough about that stuff. We have some really good news here as well, and this is gas limit information here from gaslimit.pix, and you can see now that 45 million gas is right at 47.9%. So it's like so close to being at 50%, which is when the gas block limit goes up from 36 million, which is where it currently is, getting a nice 25% boost, going up to 45 million. So I think that's going to happen by the end of this weekend, because of course all the clients now have released their versions with their default gas set to 45 million. And it looks like we're going to be there very, very, very soon. So that's some really good news there as well, is that, with all this attention coming on ETH is scaling literally right before our eyes, and that is awesome to see. Okay, and just because we are talking about all these other treasury stuff, the core devs don't sleep. They are working away. And here we have Storm, who works at Paradigm, kind of talking about Glamsterdam, which is obviously the update after the next one. That's for Fosaka. And the main update in Fosaka is going to be a PDAS, which is going to help us scale data availability for the L2s even more, which is really, really cool. But Glamsterdam, the one after that, here there are 5 potential EIPs, which could be the headliner for Glamsterdam, and this includes block access lists, EPBS, delayed execution, fossil, and 6-second slot times. And here Storm gives the like notes on what each one does, and how difficult it might be to implement on the execution layer and on the consensus layers, and what some of the impacts are going to be. So this is a nice little thread to get some information about the different EIPs that are kind of vying to be the focal point of Glamsterdam. I put a tweet a couple of days ago. I was replying to someone saying that I think the headliner should be a joint headliner with EPBS and Fossil. That is actually the same thing that Anthony Sano said on the latest episode of Daily Way, and I've seen a couple of other people say that too. There's another camp that are saying that the 6-second slot time should be the lead. So you can actually read this thread from Storm, who kind of talks a little bit about the positives and negatives about each one, and how difficult it might or might not be to implement on the network. So that's a nice little comparison thread of what's going into Glamsterdam, which should be coming at some point, maybe in the first half maybe of 2026. So yeah, the ETH devs are working a nice time in advance just to make sure everything is running really well. One of the things that I saw someone today saying that, I don't have the tweet now, it was that for the first time in a long time, it looks like all the core devs are kind of pushing together in the same direction, and they feel like, whether this is the reality or not, they feel like the kind of infighting, or like, some of the dilly-dallying, or having conversations longer than needed to, is something that's not happening as much right now. And they were interpreting this as like super bullish for the dev side, that everyone is kind of focused on scaling the L1, scaling the L2, and improving the user experience, and all of those are of course awesome things, and it really feels like the whole of the core dev cohort are working on this in a really, really cool way, and I'm really excited about it. Vitalik had a really nice little tweet here that I thought was really interesting. So Chaskin.eth put out a tweet saying that, I think most L1s will eventually become L2s. Cello showed the playbook, and, they halved the inflation. They were able to reduce block times. They were able to remove legacy code, and they're fully integrated into Ethereum's ecosystem, which is the largest dev community in crypto, and the carbon emissions were cut in half if you're into that. And this arguing that this is just a better model. So that was actually a really nice tweet. And then Vitalik actually kind of expanded on the idea, saying the best way to build an L2 is to lean into the L1's offerings, which are security, censorship resistance, proofs, data availability, more, and reduce your logic to just being a sequencer and a prover, or if you're a based rollup, then just being a prover over the core execution. Says this is a combination of trust minimization and efficiency that the 2010s enterprise blockchain crew wanted, but was never able to achieve. Now with Ethereum L2s, you can achieve it, and we've already seen successful examples of the L1 features protecting users' rights if something on the L2 goes wrong. So I think that the idea that Ethereum is building towards here is that if there's an L1 and if they want to jump on the Ethereum bandwagon, they can do that in a way that will be beneficial for them, strongly beneficial for them, and they can lean into some of these attributes from Ethereum instead of trying to build them themselves, which is really interesting. And M Team here says exactly this is a great approach, and other people were quite positive about it too. So that's really interesting. Okay, in more bullish Ethereum news, as if you couldn't get enough. It's not quite Ethereum news, it's wider crypto news, so I kind of put it at the end in the crypto section, but this massively impacts Ethereum. So today in Congress in the US, there were 3 votes that took place on crypto legislation. This is the first crypto legislation that has, come to the government in the US, and the 3 are at slightly different stages. So the one that people have heard about the most is the Genius Act, and this was the stablecoin bill basically, and this has now passed the Senate, which it did a couple of weeks ago, and now it passed in the House, which by a huge majority, actually by 308 votes in favor of this versus 122 against this. Over 100 Democrats voted with the Republicans in order to get this through, which is huge. Donald Trump will be signing this into law tomorrow. So that stablecoin act, now Genius Act, will become the law of the US tomorrow. Now, this will regulate the way stablecoins are brought on chain, but what it does is opens the floodgates for banks and other financial institutions to issue their own stablecoins or come up with strategies to issue joint stablecoins. And this is what we could potentially see in the next few days, weeks, or months. It looks like a whole bunch of financial institutions like JP Morgan and a whole bunch of others and Bank of America have also already started signaling that they will be building stablecoins. Now, technically this is like crypto stablecoins, but when you look at where stablecoins are in crypto right now, the majority of them are on Ethereum. So it stands to reason that Ethereum will be the outsized beneficiary of this law. So that is hugely bullish for Ethereum. On top of that, we had 2 laws that passed the House but now need to go to the Senate. And those are the Clarity Act, which again had huge bipartisan support. That was 294 votes in favor of it and 134 votes against it. This is a market structure bill. So this will be giving frameworks for regulation for crypto. Like it's going to have tests in there of whether a crypto asset is a security or a commodity, whether it'll be the SEC who regulates it or the CFTC who regulates it. And what's really interesting here is that they have in this hinted that there are only 3 crypto projects who are who could be considered mature or on the way to maturity, and those are Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Cardano, and others are not. And one of the others that might actually fail the commodities test is actually Solana. So that's going to be really interesting to see how that works out. But this just because it passed in the House doesn't mean that it's going to go to Congress. But the Clarity Act most likely is to go to Congress, and it likely will be that they will vote on it in some point over the next few weeks, potentially over there. And then it would go to Donald Trump unless they make amendments in which it'll go back to the House for them to vote on. The final act that got passed today was the Central Bank Digital Currency Act, the Anti-CBDC Act, and this was much more along party lines of 219 votes to 210 votes, but this is not really that relevant to crypto exactly. It's more relevant to like a ideology, like of not wanting to set up CBDCs. So yeah, this is hugely bullish set of policies for Ethereum, and yeah, I think it's going to be really, really huge. Like the impact of this is going to be really huge for Ethereum. Like the fact is that this opens the floodgates for potentially trillions of dollars worth of stablecoins to come onto Ethereum over the course of the next few years. And when Ethereum is securing that much in terms of assets on there, then you have to think what is that going to do to the price of ETH. I think it's going to be incredibly bullish is what I think. Okay, like still sticking with other news, Coinbase have been teasing a huge announcement for the last few weeks saying that they are going back to a new day one, and basically they have released a new mega app called Base app, and they basically the Coinbase wallet has been deprecated and it has been replaced by this Base app, and they are saying that you can move your money, bring your identity wherever you go, own your social graph, use markets 24/7, chat with your friends, all in the Base app. So this is when everything runs on shared or on open rails. You start from an infinite toolbox made by millions of builders like you. Now, what is actually happening here? Samuel here has a review of the wallet, and he says that they basically redesigned the whole thing, and they now this is not just another wallet update. There's a whole lot going on here. So they have integrated Farcaster. They are allowing you to do they're like letting you get apps that are kind of associated with Farcaster, the apps that are kind of built into it, that you can interact with those on the wallet directly. You actually have social discovery, so you can find out what people are talking about, what they're doing. There's new interfaces for swapping between digital currencies, and you can do that on this as well. On top of that, they have AI agents built into the wallet now, so you can talk to agents like BankerBot and Byte AI to get them to do things. And then they've got new notification system as well, and they're saying it just works. And basically, this it might not be the thing that tech crypto old schoolers will be care about that much, but when it comes to getting new people into crypto, it might be that they are massively drawn to this app, which would be really, really cool. Now, what I think would be really amazing is if they had the centralized exchange kind of integrated to this as well, so you could operate with the centralized exchange, but also seamlessly with DeFi at the same time. That would be really cool, but I guess they're still kind of maintaining that divide for now. But I'm sure that maybe in a future iteration, it might be that you'll have all of your assets just in one app. That would be really, really cool. Okay, President Trump again made another announcement today, and he is saying that he wants pension funds to be able to invest in crypto, and there are $9 trillion worth of pension funds, retirement funds in the US. Now, this is just staggering. It's just such a huge amount of money. Now, over the last year, people who are asset managers, they have changed their advice on how much crypto you should have in your portfolio. And, of course, for many years, it was zero crypto in your portfolio. And then with the start of the Bitcoin ETFs, slowly some have started saying that you should have 1% of your assets in crypto, invested in crypto. And some asset managers since then have actually upped that to 2-3% and even up to 5% in some cases. Now, if there's $9 trillion worth of retirement funds here, and you take 1% of that and put it into and put it into crypto, that is $90 billion. $90 billion worth of crypto that could be bought. So, we've seen in the last couple of weeks with the ETH price, that has moved because of, maybe $2 or $3 billion worth of buying. If you multiply that by like 30, that's what you would get from the minimum allocation potentially from something like this happening. Like, that is just an astonishing amount of money. Yeah, that is an astonishing amount of money, and I don't know how it's going to work out, but yeah, we'll definitely keep an eye on that one. Okay, I'm going to finish today's episode with a bullish rant that I have been inspired by Anthony Sassano, so it just makes sense that we have one of his tweets pulled up while I am talking about this. And there are a couple of tweets I want to go through that kind of talk about the different things that are going on with Ethereum right now and why you should be like super duper 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 bullish on what you're seeing. So just today in Ethereum, we have Blackrock files for staking ETF. We have Clarity and Genius Act passed, which can bring trillions of dollars of stablecoins on Ethereum. We have SharpLink buying tens of thousands of ETH with plans to raise $5 billion. We have another Bitcoin treasury company pivoting from Bitcoin to Ethereum, BTCT. We have GameSquare, which is one of the ones that have already pivoted just not a pivot, but a company started a treasury and they've raised $70 million to buy ETH with that. Then Bitmine from Tom Lee bought 300,000 ETH, and then key Ethereum figures are meeting with the SEC Crypto Task Force to educate them about Ethereum. That's literally the stuff that just happened today. I am saying this is the most bullish day in Ethereum's history because of all of these different things that are happening right now. Ethereum is poised for its true breakout moment, and there's huge positivity around like the development that Ethereum is taking for the most part, and some resistance and some hesitation, but for the most part there's a huge positivity around the culture of Ethereum right now. And that's like from the bottom up and the top down, like it's the community have rallied around like certain kinds of messages, like the ETH is money message, that's really strong again. And then we also have changes at the Ethereum Foundation and just like this new positivity and energy that the core devs are working with, starting at the top with Thomas and Xiaowei. All of these things together, I think have now put us in a position where ETH was kind of getting bullish, but there's literally like 7 things mentioned here that each one on their own would be like, oh, that's pretty cool, but having all of them together is just like astonishing. Like, it's truly astonishing that this confluence has just come together in the most perfect storm. And that's why you are literally seeing ETH just go up and up and up, because there's literally tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions worth of buying that's taking place every day. Now let's put that into context. And here we've got Anthony Sassano again to put that into context. So this is a tweet that he just released a little while ago talking about the inflows to the ETFs today. So he says total net issuance of Ether. This is new Ether that has come minus the Ether that's been burned since the merge. So this is nearly 3 years ago, right? We have 388,000 ETH has been minted in that time. The ETH ETFs in the last 2 days have bought 406,000 ETH across them in 2 days. So that's $1.4 billion worth or thereabouts, $1.4 billion worth. In 2 days, that's what they've bought. So he says all the net issued ETH and more since the merge was bought in the last 2 days just by the ETH ETFs. On top of that, we have tens of thousands of ETH being bought by the strategy companies. And yeah, it says throwing the treasuries, and it says the splash shock is real. So yeah, the merge was almost 3 years ago, on September 15th, 2022. This is just staggering. Like, I literally don't have the words to describe this to you all. When you think of this, you just have to realize just how much ETH has been hoovered up in just the last couple of days. And then if you look a little bit later, these last 2 weeks, and if you are sat here thinking that, this is going to stop, it's not going to stop. Like, every time the ETH price goes up, the treasury companies print more shares and raise more money to buy more ETH, because their assets and the value of their ETH goes up, right? So their share price goes up, and their premium goes up, and then they print shares to reduce that premium, but they have dollars, and then they use that dollars to go buy ETH, and that in itself is bringing so much buy pressure to ETH. And then on top of that, you're seeing the ETFs, and on top of that, you're seeing that there's a supply shock, which is evidenced by people buying on Binance with these regular intervals because there's none left on the exchanges. And when you take all these ideas together, you see that being in ETH right now it just makes so much sense that anything else is like idiocy. Like that's pretty much, like, putting it bluntly. Like, if you are not all in on ETH, then there's something wrong with you. I'm sorry. And here DC Investor kind of shares the similar sentiment. So he says, if you're betting against ETH, and betting against ETH doesn't mean that you are shorting ETH, but there are people who are short ETH as well. But if you're betting against ETH, this means that if you are, if you have positions in all L1s, if you for some reason think something other than ETH is going to do better for you right now, he says, if you're betting against ETH right now, you're betting against multiple ETH treasury organizations committed to buying billions of dollars worth of ETH. Just from what they've said, $25 billion. For ETH, that is a huge amount of money, like absolutely huge amount of money. That is around 9% of the total market cap of ETH, and that's just from those two, from Joe Lubin and Tom Lee. So it says you're betting against Tom Lee going on CNBC every day, pumping ETH to the world. You're betting against Joe Lubin and Etherealize as they spread the word of Ethereum to all of Wall Street. You're betting against multiple L2s and project teams all working around the clock to make Ethereum successful, pulling in every financial institution in the world on chain. So this is things like, these banks that are coming on chain, and starting their little pilot projects, testing. This is like rumors of people like BlackRock potentially starting their own L2s down the line. Like, it's just like, you're betting against that, right? And then he says, while the ETFs are live with plenty of runtime and now record inflows, while we see landmark legislation pass through Congress to making stablecoins and other on-chain apps effectively legal, with Ethereum being the greatest beneficiary of this, seriously, if this is you and you're still betting against it, ask yourself what the F you're doing with your life by still being bearish ETH. I love you. Take that to heart, listen to it, understand it, put it together in context of everything that I've shared with you guys today in the ETH section of this episode, and understand we are on the precipice of something truly great and something truly astonishing. And all I'm going to end this episode with is Squish Chaos was right. It's just he was wrong about the timing. And if you don't know who Squish Chaos is, go and look it up. Squish Chaos ETH thesis 2020. Go check that out and then go buy more ETH. Bye.